The void between stars shimmered as reality itself tore open. One by one, the Vorak invasion fleet emerged from warp, their jagged black hulls blotting out entire constellations. The dreadnought Worldbreaker led the armada, its spiked prow glinting with the reflected light of 1,000 weapon ports. Inside the command bridge, High Commander Vexilor flexed his clawed hands, the bioluminescent veins along his exoskeleton pulsing with anticipation. Rear port, Vexilor growled, his triple-jointed legs carrying him to the holographic display. Target system confirmed, hissed Science Officer Krax, his segmented tail twitching as data scrolled across his console. Third planet matches intelligence profiles. Primitive orbital defenses detected stationary platforms with chemical projectile weapons. No energy shielding detected beyond basic atmospheric containment. A chorus of clicking mandibles echoed across the bridge as the Vorak crew exchanged amused gestures. Vexilor's upper set of eyes narrowed while the lower pair remained fixed on the blue-green world below. Pathetic, he rumbled. The Galactic Council warned us about these. Humans said they were clever, dangerous. He made a wet, derisive sound deep in his throat. Look at them, barely spacefaring. Their greatest warship is a converted orbital refinery. On the main viewer, the human orbital platforms hung like fragile toys against the black, ancient designs, patched and repatched over decades. The Vorak fleet outmassed them 1,000 to 1. Open a channel, Vexilor commanded. All frequencies, galactic standard broadcast. The comm officer's claws danced across his panel. Ready, High Commander. Vexilor drew himself up to his full height, his chitinous chest plates expanding as he addressed the doomed world. People of Earth, his voice boomed across every human frequency. I am High Commander Vexilor of the Vorak Ascendancy. Your system now belongs to us. You will surrender unconditionally within one planetary rotation, or be erased from existence. He paused, savoring the silence that followed. No response came from the primitive world. No defiant transmissions, no panicked pleas, just static. Typical prey behavior, Krax observed. They're probably hiding in their burrows already. Vexilor turned to his weapons master. Target their largest population center. A single kinetic strike should, High Commander. The sensor officer suddenly shrieked, his eye stalks quivering. We're receiving a transmission from the human defense platform. The main viewer flickered. A human face appeared, square-jawed with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that held no fear. The insignia on his uniform identified him as Captain Ryan Blake of the United Earth Space Navy. Vorak vessel Worldbreaker, Blake said, his voice calm. This is Captain Blake of the USN Defiance. You are in violation of sovereign human space. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately. The bridge erupted in harsh, clicking laughter. Vexilor waited for it to die down before responding. Your bravado is amusing, human, but look around you. My fleet could glass your world before you finish your next breath. Blake didn't blink. I see your fleet, Vexilor, 723 ships. Mostly destroyer, class with one command, dreadnought. His lips twitched. Did you really bring your entire navy to conquer one planet? Vexilor's claws dug into his command chair. Enough. Your posturing means nothing. You have until the end of this transmission to surrender. Blake leaned closer to the screen. Here is the thing about humans, Vexilor. We don't respond well to threats. The transmission cut abruptly for a long moment. The bridge was silent. Then Krax snorted. Their defiance will make the breaking sweeter. Move the fleet into attack formation, Vexilor ordered. Primary targets are their military installations. Secondary targets, High Commander. The sensor officer interrupted again, his voice shrill with panic. Multiple energy spikes from the planet's surface. Reading thousands of launch signatures. Vexilor whirled to the display. The human orbital platforms were suddenly alive with activity, their rusted exteriors peeling away to reveal rows of gleaming missile batteries. Across the planet's night side, countless pinpricks of light flared to life. Impossible, Krax whispered. Those readings, Those are quantum lock warheads. That technology is restricted by Galactic. The first missiles struck before he could finish. The Worldbreaker shuddered as its shields flared under the assault. Across the fleet, Vorak ships scrambled to evade the sudden storm of fire. On the viewer, Blake's face reappeared. This time, he wasn't alone. A dark-haired woman in an admiral's uniform stood beside him, her smile sharp as a knife. "Hi, Commander Vexlor," Admiral Lisa Hayes said. "Welcome to Earth. Let's see how well your fleet handles some proper human hospitality." The transmission cut again, just as the second wave of missiles erupted from hidden silos across the planet's moon. The Vorak fleet surged forward, their jagged black hulls swallowing the light of distant stars. High Commander Vexlor watched from the bridge of the Worldbreaker, his four eyes narrowing as Earth's pathetic orbital defenses came into view. A single outdated platform rotated lazily in high orbit, its rusted plating barely holding together. "Pathetic," Vexlor hissed, his mandibles clicking in amusement. "This is what they call a defense." Beside him, Tactical Officer Drassic chuckled, his armored fingers dancing over the holographic display. "Scans confirm minimal energy signatures. Their fleet is scattered, their weapons obsolete. They won't even see the first volley." Vexlor leaned back in his command throne, the bioluminescent veins along his arms pulsing with anticipation. "Open a channel to their leaders. Let them hear their fate before we erase them." The comms crackled to life, broadcasting across every human frequency. "People of Earth," Vexlor's voice boomed, translated into their crude languages. "You have one choice: kneel and surrender, or be reduced to ash. This is your only warning." Silence, then laughter. Not from the planet below, but from the void itself. A human voice, calm and mocking, cut through the Vorak comms. "Oh, we heard you just fine." Vexlor stiffened. "Who is this?" "Captain Ryan Blake. United Earth Stellar Navy. And let me be the first to say, welcome to the neighborhood." Before Vexlor could respond, the Worldbreaker's proximity alarms shrieked. "Commander!" Drassic shouted, his claws scrambling over the console. Energy spikes everywhere. Space erupted. Thousands of cloaked mines detonated in perfect synchronization, their explosions rippling outward in a wave of fire. The Vorak fleet, caught in the kill zone, shuddered as their shields flared and buckled. The lead cruiser, Ravager, vanished in a ball of plasma, its hull torn apart like paper. "Evasive maneuvers," Vexlor roared, gripping the arms of his throne as the Worldbreaker lurched violently. "Where did those come from?" "Undetectable until activation," Drassic snarled. "They were hiding in the debris field." The human voice returned, colder now. "You should have scanned harder." From the asteroid belt, shadows detached, sleek, angular shapes flickering into visibility as their cloaking systems disengaged. Human stealth drones, their railguns humming to life, streaked toward the Vorak like vengeful ghosts. "All ships, return fire," Vexlor barked. "Focus on those drones." Too late, the drones weaved through the chaotic volleys of Vorak plasma, their movements too precise, too unpredictable. They struck like vipers, targeting shield emitters and engine clusters. The Worldbreaker's portside array exploded, sending a shudder through the massive dreadnought. "Shields at Faye," Drassic reported, his voice tight. "We've lost the Ravager, Claw of Dominance, and 3 escorts." Vexlor's blood ran cold. This wasn't a disorganized defense. This was a trap. On the USN Defiance, Admiral Lisa Hayes watched the carnage unfold with grim satisfaction. The holographic display in her command center flickered with real-time data as the Vorak fleet reeled from the ambush. "Phase 1 complete," she murmured. Beside her, Lieutenant Jake Morrison grinned, his fingers flying over his console. "They took the bait, Admiral. Hook, line, and sinker." Hayes nodded. "Activate Iron Veil. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate us." Deep within Earth's orbital defense grid, dormant systems awoke. Hidden platforms, disguised as derelict satellites, powered up for the first time in decades. Their targeting arrays locked onto the Vorak fleet with chilling precision. "Admiral," Morrison said, his grin fading into something sharper. "They're scrambling reinforcements." Hayes didn't flinch. Let them come. The Worldbreaker's bridge was chaos. Vexlor snarled as another explosion rocked the ship. "Where are our reinforcements?" "En route, Commander," Drusick shouted. "But the human drones are picking us apart." A new voice cut in, Admiral Hayes, her tone ice. "You wanted a fight, Vorak. You got one." The Defiant surged forward, its railguns glowing white. Hot, the first shot punched clean through a Vorak frigate, splitting it in half. The second struck the Worldbreaker's shields, sending spiderwebs of energy crackling across its surface. Vexlor's claws dug into his throne. This wasn't supposed to happen. Humans were weak, fragile. Yet here they were, tearing his fleet apart. "Fall back," he roared. "Regroup at the rally point." But the humans weren't done. From behind the moon, shadows stirred. Ships, dozens of them, powered up, their engines flaring to life. Not outdated relics, but warships, sleek. Lethal, the Mars Defense Fleet, Phalanx, had been waiting. Morrison's voice crackled over the comms, laced with dark amusement. "You fight like prey, Vorak. But humans, we've been the hunters for millennia." The Worldbreaker's shields failed, and the sky burned. The bridge of the Worldbreaker shuddered as another volley of human missiles found their mark. Warning klaxons wailed through the cavernous command center, their harsh tones clashing with the panicked shouts of Vorak officers. High Commander Vexlor gripped the armrests of his throne. Like command chair, his talons digging into the reinforced metal. "Shields at Fey," screeched Tactical Officer Zorath, his four eyes darting between readouts. "The human mines. They're not just explosives, they're EMP disruptors." Vexlor snarled, his crest flaring crimson with rage. On the main view screen, the human stealth drones moved like ghosts, small, agile, and terrifyingly precise. Their weapons didn't have the raw power of Vorak plasma cannons, but they struck with surgical accuracy, targeting shield emitters and engine clusters. "Pathetic," Vexlor roared. "They fight like vermin, skulking in the dark." A new voice crackled over the comms, clear, calm, and utterly human. "You keep saying that," Captain Ryan Blake said, his image flickering onto the screen. He stood on the bridge of the Defiance, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "But here is the thing about vermin, Vexlor. They survive. They adapt. And when you think you've cornered them..." He leaned forward slightly. "That is when they bite." The transmission cut out just as a fresh wave of human fighters streaked past the Worldbreaker's bow. These weren't the outdated interceptors the Vorak intelligence reports had described. Sleek, angular, and bristling with weapons, they moved in perfect formation, their railguns spitting hypervelocity slugs that punched clean through Vorak armor. Evasive maneuvers. Vexlor bellowed too late. The Worldbreaker lurched violently as a trio of torpedoes slammed into its starboard flank. Fire erupted through the lower decks, and somewhere deep in the ship, a secondary explosion rocked the hull. Science Officer Crack stumbled forward, his data tablet clutched in shaking claws. "Commander, their weapons. They're not using plasma or lasers. It is some kind of kinetic. I don't care what it is." Vexlor snapped. "Return fire, obliterate them." The Vorak gunners unleashed a storm of plasma, the green bolts filling space with deadly energy. But the human fighters danced through the barrage, their pilots executing maneuvers that defied physics. One fighter, painted with jagged red stripes, barrel rolled between two plasma volleys, then flipped end over end, its railgun locking onto a Vorak destroyer. The shot struck the destroyer's bridge, and for a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the entire forward section of the ship detonated in a silent, fiery bloom. On the Defiance, Blake watched the destruction unfold with grim satisfaction. "Lieutenant Chen," he said, not taking his eyes off the screen. "Tell the Atlantica to move in. Time to show these lizards what happens when they underestimate us." Back on the Worldbreaker, Vexilor's fury was giving way to something far more dangerous: doubt. His fleet, the pride of the Vorak expansion, was being torn apart by a species the Galactic Council had labeled as primitive. "Commander," Krax hissed, his voice low and urgent. "Their tactics, they're not random. They're herding us." Vexilor's crest flattened against his skull. He studied the tactical display, and the truth hit him like a plasma bolt to the chest. The mines, the drones, the fighters, they weren't just attacking, they were funneling the Vorak fleet into a kill zone. Blake's voice returned, colder this time. "You came here thinking we'd roll over, that we'd beg for mercy." A pause. "But humans, we don't beg, we don't surrender." The transmission ended with 3 simple words, delivered like a death sentence: "We fight back." The first Vorak capital ship, the Dusk Talon, erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, its reactor core breached by a pinpoint railgun strike. The shockwave rattled the World Breaker, and for the first time in his long, brutal career, High Commander Vexilor felt something he'd never expected. The World Breaker's hull groaned under the relentless assault, its once impenetrable shields flickering like dying stars. Vexor's claws dug into his command throne as another explosion rocked the bridge. "Where are these humans coming from?" he snarled, his ventral plates vibrating with rage on the USN Defiance. Captain Blake watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. His fighter wings danced through the Vorak formation, their railgun rounds punching through armor like paper. "Admiral," he said, tapping his comm. "They're scrambling reinforcements. Time to show them the rest of the party." Admiral Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the Atlantica, her fingers hovering over the encrypted command console. "Lieutenant Morrison," she said, her voice calm despite the storm of battle outside, "give the order." Jake Morrison's hands flew across his terminal. "Mars Defense Fleet, this is Phalanx Actual. All ships power up and engage." Behind the moon's shadow, space itself seemed to ripple. One by one, the dormant ships of the Mars Defense Fleet awakened, not the outdated relics the Vorak intelligence reports had described, but sleek, angular warships, their hulls bristling with weapon ports. The USN Vanguard, USN Titan, and a dozen others powered their drives, the blue glow of their reactors cutting through the darkness. "Admiral," Morrison said, grinning, "they're online and locked on." Hayes allowed herself a small smile. "Open fire," space erupted. Railgun rounds streaked across the void, slamming into the Vorak reinforcements before they could regroup. The Phalanx fleet moved with terrifying precision, their formations tight, their fire disciplined. On the World Breaker, Vexilor's science officer Krax staggered as new signatures flooded their scanners. "Commander!" he hissed, his frills flaring in alarm. "Sensors detect a second fleet human. They were hiding." Vexor's eyes narrowed. "Impossible." Their ships were outdated, broken. Krax's voice trembled. "They were decoys." The Defiance banked hard, its engines flaring as it closed the distance with a Vorak cruiser. Blake's voice crackled over the ship. "Wide comb. All hands brace for impact." The human dreadnought slammed into the Vorak vessel at full speed, its reinforced prow shearing through the alien hull like a knife. Metal screamed. Atmosphere vented into the void, and the cruiser split apart, its wreckage spinning into the black. Morrison whooped over the comms. "That is how we do it." Hayes watched the feed, her expression unreadable. "They thought we were weak," she murmured. "They thought we'd break." On the World Breaker, Vexilor's bridge was chaos. Alarms blared, consoles sparked, and his crew scrambled to contain the damage. "Fall back," he roared. "Regroup at the rally point." But it was too late. The human fleet advanced, their guns silent for only a moment before unleashing another volley. The Vorak ships, caught between the mines, the drones, and now the full might of Earth's hidden armada, had nowhere to run. Blake's voice cut through the Vorak comm channels crisp and cold. "You came to conquer. Now you'll learn what happens when you wake the wolf." The Defiance's main cannons cycled up, their barrels glowing white, hot, fire. The Vorak never saw it coming. The Worldbreaker shuddered as another volley of railgun fire slammed into its starboard flank. Vexilor gripped the command console, his talons digging grooves into the metal. The bridge lights flickered red, casting jagged shadows across the Vorak crew as they scrambled to contain the damage. Shields at Faye, a tactical officer screeched, his frill flaring in panic. Vexilor snarled, mandibles clicking in frustration. How? Their ships were supposed to be outdated scrap. A new alert blared across the main display. Science Officer Krax hissed as the data streamed in. His four eyes narrowing. Commander, their weapons signatures. They don't match our intelligence reports. Explain. Krax's claws danced over the console, pulling up a side comparison. On the left, the feeble energy readings from Earth's supposed defense grid. On the right, the brutal kinetic strikes now tearing through their fleet. They were masking their true capabilities. Their railguns aren't just functional, they're advanced, more powerful than ours. The bridge fell silent except for the distant thump of another explosion. Vexilor's crest flattened against his skull, a sign of dawning horror among his kind. You're telling me they let us think their weapons were primitive? Krax nodded grimly. Their stealth tech is beyond anything we've encountered. They hid their fleet's true strength until we committed to the attack. A new voice crackled over the comms. Captain Blake, his tone dripping with cold amusement. Surprised Vexilor. You came expecting farmers with pitchforks. Instead, you found wolves. Vexilor's claws clenched. You deceived us. No, we educated you. The line cut off as another salvo rocked the Worldbreaker. Krax's console lit up with fresh warnings. Commander, the human fleet. They're not just defending, they're herding us. Their formations are pushing us into the minefield's kill zone. Vexilor whirled toward the tactical display. The Vorak armada, once a flawless sphere of dominance, was now a fractured mess. Human ships moved with terrifying precision, their maneuvers too fast, too coordinated. Every retreat path they'd planned was collapsing. Recall all fighters, Vexilor barked. Full retreat vector. Too late, Krax whispered. The Defiant streaked past the Worldbreaker's viewport, its prow glowing white-hot from a ramming maneuver that had just split a Vorak cruiser in half. Debris spiraled in its wake, glittering like cursed confetti. Vexilor's blood ran cold. This wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter, and humanity had been planning it long before the Vorak ever set course for Earth. Open a channel to the fleet, he growled. All ships, emergency warp now. Krax hesitated. The humans will track our jump signatures. They'll know where we do it. As the Worldbreaker's warp drive whined to life, Vexilor stared at the burning wreckage of his armada. The humans hadn't just won, they'd humiliated them. And worse, they'd done it without breaking a sweat. Krax's voice was hollow. The Council, they'll demand answers. Vexilor didn't reply. There was only one answer that mattered now. Humanity had never been weak, and the galaxy would never forget it. The bridge of the Defiance hummed with quiet intensity, the glow of tactical displays painting Captain Blake's face in shifting blues and reds. Outside the viewports, the remnants of the Vorak armada burned. Escape pods streaked away from dying warships, their trajectories erratic as they fled Earth's gravity well. All batteries cease fire, Blake ordered, his voice calm despite the adrenaline still coursing through him. Let them run, Lieutenant Chen hesitated, her fingers hovering over the weapons console. Sir, they're sitting ducks. Blake shook his head. We're not butchers. Let them carry the message back. He leaned forward, tapping the comms panel. Vorak survivors, this is Captain Ryan Blake of the United Earth starship Defiance. His voice carried across the open channel, sharp and unyielding. You came to our home expecting an easy conquest. You thought we were weak prey. A flicker of static. Then a response, weak, distorted, Vexilor's voice, stripped of its earlier arrogance. You deceived us. Blake smirked. No, you deceived yourselves. He gestured to the main screen, where the wreckage of the Worldbreaker tumbled end over end, its once proud hull now a shattered carcass. Tell your warlords, tell your high command, humanity doesn't kneel, we don't break, and we never fight fair. A pause. Then, softer Vexor's reply, they will not believe us. Then let this be your proof. Blake nodded to Chen. Transmit the battle logs, all of them. Let them see what happens when they underestimate us. Across the bridge, the crew exchanged grim smiles. On the tactical display, the last functioning Vorak cruiser, its engines sputtering, its hull scorched, lurched into warp. The distortion ripple faded, leaving only silence. Think they'll come back? Ensign Rivera asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Blake exhaled, watching the stars. Oh, they'll come back, but next time. He turned, meeting the eyes of his crew. Next time, they'll bring more than just arrogance. Below them, Earth hung serene in the black, its blue-green surface untouched. The orbital defense platforms, once mocked as outdated relics, hummed with renewed energy. The Iron Veil mines, now visible without their stealth fields, drifted like silent sentinels, and somewhere in the dark the Mars Defense Fleet phalanx waited. Blake allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. Let them come. Humanity would be ready. In the wreckage, strewn void, a single Vorak escape pod tumbled, its occupants silent. The battle logs played on repeat, the footage of human ships, cloaked, deceptive, brutal, burned into their minds. One warrior, his carapace cracked, turned to another. We were wrong. His companion didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. The observation deck of the Galactic Council's orbital station had never been so silent. The holographic battle logs played on loop, casting flickering blue light across the stunned faces of a dozen species ambassadors. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood at ease near the projection controls, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the Vorak armada get torn apart for the 7th time in as many minutes. Ambassador Krell of the Zenthari Alliance was the first to find his voice. His 4 eyes blinked in staggered sequence as he turned from the display. This cannot be accurate. Your species had no warp-capable warships in our last census. Hayes allowed herself a small smile. We had them. We just didn't feel the need to advertise. She tapped the controls, zooming in on the Defiance's railgun barrage. The Mars Defense Fleet's been operational for 8 years. We just kept them behind the moon when your survey ships came calling. A murmur ran through the assembled dignitaries. The Tarkalian representative's frills flushed crimson with agitation. You deceived the entire galactic community. No, Hayes corrected, her voice calm but firm. We didn't lie. We simply let you believe what you wanted to believe. She advanced the recording to show the Defiance's final ramming maneuver. When your scouts reported our primitive defenses, who were we to correct them? Science Officer Crax's recorded scream of, "They let us think we were winning," echoed through the chamber, making several ambassadors flinch. The Vorak observer, a junior diplomat hastily sent after the battle, looked ready to vomit his nutrient sack on the projection. Captain Blake's face appeared as his final transmission played. Tell your warlords humanity doesn't kneel. The words hung in the air like a declaration of war. The Zelnaga ambassador, ancient even by their species standards, raised a trembling appendage. You understand what this means. The Vorak Collective will not take this humiliation lightly. Hayes nodded. We're counting on it. She switched off the projection. For 3 generations, we've listened to the galactic community tell us we were too young, too weak, too primitive to matter. Today, we demonstrated otherwise. In the back of the chamber, a human technician was already dismantling a salvaged Vorak plasma cannon. The weapon's inner workings lay exposed on a workbench, surrounded by a team of engineers making rapid notes. One held up a component triumphantly. Got it. Their cooling matrix is just a modified. Hayes cleared her throat pointedly, and the engineers went quiet. But the damage was done. Every alien eye in the room had seen how quickly humans adapted alien technology. The Tarkalian's frills darkened further. You're not even trying to hide your reverse engineering now. Why should we? Hayes spread her hands. You all saw the battle. The Vorak came to burn our world. Instead, we broke their finest fleet in 6 hours. She leaned forward, resting her palms on the observation rail. The rules have changed. Humanity is done being the galaxy's punching bag. A chime sounded from the main console. The technician checked the readout, then turned to Hayes. Admiral, the Defiance reports they've finished cataloging the Vorak wreckage. Captain Blake wants to know if we're keeping the Worldbreaker's main gun intact or scrapping it for parts. Hayes didn't take her eyes off the ambassadors. Tell Blake to mount it on the Defiance's dorsal spine. I want the Vorak to recognize their own weapons when we return their visit. The Vorak diplomat finally found his voice. You wouldn't dare. Hayes turned to face him fully. Try us. She tapped her comm unit. Lieutenant Morrison, prepare the readiness reports for the Jupiter shipyards and inform the President that the Council has reconsidered our species classification. As she strode from the chamber, the sound of frantic diplomatic channels opening followed her out. Behind the observation glass, Earth hung serene against the black, its blue oceans catching the sunlight. Tiny specks, salvage teams and construction drones already swarmed through the orbital debris field, turning the remnants of an invasion force into the foundation of humanity's next leap forward. In the corridor outside, Jake Morrison fell into step beside her. They looked like they'd seen a ghost. Hayes allowed herself a full grin now. Not a ghost, Lieutenant, a reckoning. She accepted the datapad he offered, scrolling through the latest damage assessments. How long until the phalanx is back at full strength? 3 weeks, ma'am. The shipyards are already incorporating Vorak shield tech into the refits. Jake hesitated. Admiral, they're going to come back, and next time, they'll bring everything they've got. Hayes handed back the pad. Good, let them. We've been preparing for this since the first Vorak scout entered the system. She nodded toward the bustling activity visible through the station's viewports. Now the whole galaxy knows what happens when you underestimate humanity. As they walked, the station's announcement system chimed. A synthesized voice echoed through the corridors. Attention all personnel, emergency session of the Galactic Council in 30 minutes. Agenda revision of species threat classifications. All human representatives are requested to attend. Hayes and Morrison exchanged glances. The lieutenant smirked. Think they'll upgrade us from harmless to mildly concerning? The Admiral's laughter carried down the hallway as the station hummed around them, alive with the sound of a galactic order shifting on its axis. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Vorak collective would be licking their wounds and plotting revenge, and humanity would be waiting.